The part of watercolor that I love the most is the fact that we can't control it entirely. And even the fact that we can't correct it really teaches us something about nature in general, in that there's a certain amount of guidance that we can give and there's a certain amount of direction that we can have, but ultimately the medium itself of watercolor will just do what it needs to do, and it's I think a quality that we as artists can really learn from in just letting go a little bit. This video is an excerpt from my full 30-minute watercolor tutorial available on my website at crystalbeshara.com/shop-videos. We'll be approaching this watercolor painting in a purist method, which means we'll be reserving our whites as opposed to using white paint. We do so by masking out our whites, and for us this is the very first thing that we're going to be doing. I'm using a rigid synthetic flat brush. You can use a filbert or even a big round brush, so long as the bristles are synthetic. I like to wet my brush, apply a little bit of soap to my brush, and then apply the masking fluid. Notice that I am using the flat edge of the brush almost like a trowel so that I can lay it across and scumble across the surface, really focusing on capturing just the surface texture of the cold pressed paper. Now comes the fun part. Once the masking fluid is completely dry, we can manipulate it to create really beautiful and natural edges to the tops or bottoms of the wave. We do so by pulling down and rolling the edge, or skimming our finger across the surface to open up little pockets or bubbles where the dark paint is going to backfill. Anything that is masked is white. Anything that is currently just plain paper will take on the color of the paint. Notice when I push with my finger, I'm creating a little bit of a thick edge, and it's kind of cool because the paint will rest up against that edge and the color will build up and be a little stronger. This adds a really wonderful three-dimensional quality. Once the masking fluid is dry, I paint the entire scene and finally move towards removing the masking fluid. Now, of course, in the full tutorial, you'll get all of the instructions and all of the colors that I'm using. We have quite a lot of masking fluid here. So for this, I'm going to be using what's called a rubber cement pickup. And basically, it's just a very dense, pebbled rubber wedge, and I can use it to remove all of the masking fluid. You can wipe away or blow dry all of the little bits that accumulate on the surface. Of course, once the masking fluid comes off, there's always some touch-ups to do, and in this case, I applied some shadow to the waves to make them feel a little bit more luminous and to give them a sense of backlighting and shadow. Once again, I encourage you to bring a sense of play to the surface. Play with different shapes of brushes. Here I'm using my dagger, I've splayed the bristles, and I'm using its natural texture to create a little bit more of a darker textural shadow inside the waves. Here's the finished painting from this particular tutorial. Every time you do this piece, you'll bring a new and fresh perspective, but also you get to reinforce those new skill sets that you've just learned, balancing play with precision and bring a lightness and confidence to your work. Painting with watercolor is a practice. This is a second example of the exact same image that I worked from with a very different result. Thank you so much for being here and for allowing me to be part of your journey. Bye for now.